Episode number 249, How to Get the Most Out of ProPresenter 7, Part 2 with Cody Patterson. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Well, hey guys, welcome to Making Sunday Happen. So glad to have you here. I count it a joy and a privilege to hang out with you guys each and every week. And even though the podcast is a one-way communication from me to you, I love that you guys connect with me through social media and email and the like. So I love hearing from you. You can email me at carl@1230.media, carl@1230.media. Feel free to drop me a line anytime that you would like, even just to vent about what's going on at your church, to share praises, prayer requests, all that kind of stuff. I love hearing from you, so feel free to email me anytime. This week on the podcast, we continue to look at how to get the most out of ProPresenter 7. Last week, I talked with founder of Renewed Vision, the mastermind behind it all, Brad Weston. So if you missed that episode, you might jump back and watch or listen to what Brad had to say. We walked through the origin story of Renewed Vision, and Brad really gave us the why behind Pro7 and the need for such an overhaul with this version of the software. So this week, we're going to be talking with Cody Patterson. Cody is the marketing director at Renewed Vision. He's pretty fresh on the team. He's only been there a little under a year. So I'm drilling in with Cody today all the new features of Pro7. So where I talked with Brad about the theory and the why behind the new version of the software, I'm talking with Cody about details of the new features. So if you're thinking about making the switch to Pro7, I'm hoping that last week's and this week's episode of the podcast will really shed some light into your decision making as you move to Pro7. But first, I want to let you know about my friends at Seeds Family Worship. Seeds produces word-for-word scripture songs and resources for families, and also they're great resources to use in your kids' worship experience. We've produced lyric videos, graphics, promo videos, and more for Seeds over the last several years. They're great friends of mine. If you're looking for great resources, again, for your family to get into God's Word and content for your kids' worship experiences, both online and in-person gatherings as you bring your kids back into church, Seeds is a great resource for you. It's a great ministry to check out. You can just go to seedsfamilyworship.com to learn more. seedsfamilyworship.com. Well, here's a little bit more about Seeds, and then we'll jump right to my interview with Cody Patterson from Renewed Vision. Here we go.
Hey everybody, I'm Jason Hauser. I'm the founder of the Seeds Family Worship Ministry. We're here in Seeds Studio at the home church of Seeds called Lighthouse in Twin Falls, Idaho. You know, it blows my mind to think that the Seeds ministry has been in existence for 11 years, and it's amazing all that God has done. The ministry began 13 years ago at a church plant called Harpeth Community Church in Franklin, Tennessee. The children's ministry director asked me to write some scripture songs for the Vacation Bible School. Well, at the time I was producing Matthew West's first album and writing songs with him. And so the music we were creating, this pop rock, high energy music, really spilled over into the Seeds Family Worship music. So I took these songs that I wrote, went and led worship for Vacation Bible School. And I remember that Friday as I stood on the stage singing these songs for the kids. And I remember singing 1 Timothy 4:12, the song Young. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers. And I watched every kid and every adult in the room sing the words, and I realized then how powerful music is in helping get God's word in the hearts of kids and adults. So Seeds really began as a ministry for kids at Vacation Bible School, but God showed us He wanted us to minister to families. And so we changed the name Seeds to Seeds Family Worship. Well, fast forward 11 years, we've written songs to over 100 verses of scripture. We just released our 9th album, it's called The Journey, and we feel like we're just beginning to create awesome resources for the church and for the home.
Hey guys, today I welcome Cody Patterson to the podcast. Cody is the marketing director for Renewed Vision and plays a big role in how churches use ProPresenter week in and week out. Cody, welcome in. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Carl. I'm excited to be here. It's going to be a fun time talking about this stuff with you.
Yeah, man, I'm really pumped. You kind of just joined Renewed Vision recently, right? Tell me a little bit about your role there.
So just joined, kind of relative if you talk about the software development industry, because I've been here for like 8 months now, which is probably like a year and a half or 2 years at most companies.
Right.
Because people jump around so much in the software world. But when I started in August, and I was brought on to be the marketing director. We never had a marketing director before at Renewed Vision.
Yeah.
ProPresenter kind of took off from the get-go, and so they haven't necessarily needed someone to reach people on the outside. So they really brought me in because they weren't doing a whole lot of reaching people who already are their customers. They wanted to engage who they already have there, and so they brought me in to help do that more, but also to oversee some of the outside marketing as well. So with ProPresenter 7, I oversaw the marketing for that.
Gotcha. Now, we talked with Brad a little bit last week about kind of the theory behind ProPresenter, kind of the story of Renewed Vision, and also kind of the theory behind the new build of Pro 7. So I want to drill in today with you some of the new features and just kind of walk through how churches can use it effectively in their setting. So get us started here. Give us an overview of ProPresenter 7 and just kind of some of the highlights and what you guys are hoping to accomplish with this version.
Yeah. So ProPresenter 7 was written, at least on the Windows side, it was really rewritten from the ground up.
Yeah.
On the Mac side, a lot of the code was rewritten as well, but a lot of it was already good from Pro 6. So we took some of that, but mostly it was rewritten. And as you know, I think Pro 7 is 64-bit on both platforms, so it's super powerful because it's no longer lagging behind on the hardware side of things. It's no longer just using 4 gigs of RAM to be able to make its use. It's actually able to make use of all 16 gigs, although you're never going to see that happen.
Right.
It can use what it needs to perform correctly. So that is a huge thing. But for me personally, I found that as I started getting used to it and using it more, the biggest things for me were actually the UI, the user interface, and then these smaller features that aren't the ones that we necessarily advertise all the time. So for me, the user interface is a game changer because it takes this idea of we now have like kind of thirds to the software. You got your first left third, which is your preparation. You got your middle third, which is your
presentation,
and then your right third, which would be more of like your output. And some of that kind of mixes together, but it really is intuitive once you get used to that setup, because you can just go left to right and you can focus on the things you need to focus on.
Yeah, good.
It makes it a lot more easier, I feel like, for our customers. Going into it with any software, if you're getting a new upgrade or an update or changing software, there's always going to be this the sense of, oh, it's a change, and either I don't like it or I got to get used to it and it's going to take me a while. And I get that. That's completely understandable. Even me, I work in the tech industry now, and I deal with that every day. Like, we upgrade something or update something and I have to get used to it. But once I do, I've realized that it honestly becomes easier for me, because as companies are starting to make things more intuitive, we have to relearn it.
Right.
And then once we do, it's so much simpler. And even from like the support side of things, the reason we built the UI the way we did is so that we can support it better. With the previous UI, there was so much customizability for the user that it was far tougher for us to actually put out bug updates, because that's hundreds of more things we have to test, and we just don't have the capacity to do that. So having a more streamlined UI makes it easier for us to really update and push updates for people who need them.
Have you seen churches be hesitant to move to Pro 7, or what's been the response from most churches?
So it kind of, it really depends. We are definitely, one of the things that I recommend to churches is try out stuff before you buy it. We have a free trial, we have a 14-day trial. We encourage churches to use that because it allows them to use it in their services, test it out, see how it works, and it has no watermark on it. We also have the unlimited version where they can use it for free forever, but it has the watermark. So that's also a trial period they could use to be testing the software. The best way to know if a software is going to work for you is to try it out ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just because it's the newest and best thing out there, and it is, doesn't mean that you have to switch to it right away. But personally, I mean, I would, just because it is pretty stable. It's stable. We've been releasing constant updates like we've been promising. But more than that, it adds so much more functionality for the user as well. So yeah, there are churches that have been hesitant. There have been churches that have been headstrong, going straight forward. And then my goal for churches is that they kind of take the middle ground of let's test it out first, and then let's move forward if it works for us.
So let's start drilling into some of the new features. All right. So tell me about the new optimized search feature is huge. So how does it make it easier? How did you guys write this to make it easier for me to find songs or documents or whatever I need to in my library?
Yeah, so previously you'd have to go into your library, select the library you wanted to use, and search through that. And you could have filters, but it was kind of a complicated list of things that was always static there. And the problem was that with ProPresenter 6, Song Select and the regular library searched at the same time. So if you put in a search for Oh How He Loves Us or whatever song you want to choose, it's going to search the Song Select database, it's going to search our database, and it's going to search it for some different things in our database. The problem with that was it would start to bog down on really just the software itself, because you're doing a lot, but also the Song Select servers, because we have thousands of churches who would be searching the Song Select servers every time they would put in a search. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to split that up so that the Song Select servers aren't being as pounded as hard, but also for us so that you have a faster search result. So now if you go to a search, all you have to do is type in the first few letters of a lyric, and it'll pull up that song. So it's a lot more fluent because it's doing more deep searches, but it's faster because we've separated the searches out.
And that's good for one, we can search more intuitively, and two, there might be times when a worship leader turns a chorus of a song that's not in the script, and we're having to and find it real fast. So that allows us to pull stuff like that, make that happen on the fly a little bit better. Is that what you guys have seen a big use for it, or how?
Definitely. I go to Bethel. We're spontaneous. So being able to just pull up, search, type in the first little bit of text for a song, and then immediately drag it to your interface and be able to use it is so much better than having to search through all the stuff like we did previously. It makes it a lot more fluid.
Yeah. All right. So tell me about the multiple Bible display. So this allows multiple translations to be seen at one time. And you've also have some multilingual integration as well, right? Tell me about that.
So simply just because we have multiple Bible translations available now, that means you can have it multilingual. So we didn't just design it around the whole idea of being multilingual, but that is definitely a huge benefit for a lot of our churches. And so with the new Bible display, you're able to put up as many really Bibles as you can build a theme for. So if you want to do 2 to compare translations during a message, or if you want to put 4 up there ahead of time as the pastor is preparing for his message so he can see what different translations he wants to speak from, that's possible. But if they have the right Bible translations, they can also do multilingual very easily. So it comes with some pre-built themes, but they can also build their own as users to really go around what they need.
Good. I think I want people to hear the run-through piece of that. So sometimes if you get there and run through, you're walking through the pastor's sermon notes and you realize you're in the wrong translation and it's not going to read right. You can catch that and run through and have the pastor choose the right translation. Would I be accurate in that?
Oh, definitely. That's a huge thing. But there's also, with our new editor, it's so much more easy to use, and it's so much more advanced in that you can do things that Keynote and PowerPoint can do, but you can do more things as well. And so we really recommend pastors and whoever is setting up the the slides, whether that's the graphic tech or the pastor or whoever else, that they use ProPresenter for that, because now they can just easily go and look at the translations they want to do while they're studying, and then they can import them straight to the message, that they're going to be using for their services.
Yep. All right, let's talk about Easy View and why you guys created this feature. It switches off graphics and it also magnifies words up, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So as technology has progressed, thumbnails and smaller images have become harder to see, because the higher resolution screen you have, I don't know the technical stuff behind it, but I know that the smaller things on the screen, if you have it all packed in there, it becomes harder to see. And so because of that, as you start to get towards the 2K and 4K screens that people are using, the thumbnails that people are looking at for slides have been harder to read the text and other stuff on them. And so our desire was to make it easier for people. And it also helps with, like, if someone has visibility problems, they're able to just focus on the words now. If you have a lot of graphic content behind your text, let's say at every chorus and every verse, every bridge, you have a new motion background. It may be hard to read that text on that small little logo with the graphic behind it. So the whole purpose is to eliminate all those distractions, so you can just focus on what text is going to go up on the screen.
Make that easier for the operators to see.
For sure.
Okay, tell me about the new editor. You guys added a lot to the editor, made that more advanced. So give me some of the features of the new editor.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is having the built-in text fills with lines behind them. So you don't have to go into Photoshop or something else, create graphics with lines, and then put them inside of ProPresenter. You can do that all within ProPresenter very easily. But then on top of that, you can even do gradient fills. So behind the text, you could have two different lines, and then you could have a gradient from purple to yellow, or whatever crazy colors you want to do that match your motion backgrounds that look really neat. And so that's just a simple text feature that people have been wanting. And so we brought that with ProPresenter 7. But there are so many more new things. I mean, the new editor really does add a lot of functionality that we didn't have in the past, because it's really rewritten. It's more powerful in what it does, but it's also really easy to use. We built it to be designed after Keynote. Keynote's used by a lot of people, especially Mac users, but it also has some kind of PowerPoint, looks to it as well. So if someone knows PowerPoint or Keynote, it's not too hard for them to use. And that's one of the big things we wanted to move towards going in this new software. So we wanted to make it easier for people to transition into using that built-in editor, since it's going to help them in the long run.
So tell me about one thing I love is the dynamic text scaling. That's a little bit more intuitive and not as clunky. That, and also shapes and gradients. So a lot of people are using more shapes and different things behind lyrics. So tell me about that and how you guys have made that easier.
Sure. So dynamic text scaling means if you wanted to create a box with text and have the box expand or decrease as you add text, you could do that. Or you can have the text size increase or decrease when you change the box size. This helps a lot with, let's say that you're wanting to put a bunch of scripture on one screen or a bunch of lyrics on one screen. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you did want to do it, you'd be able to have a box that scales your text down to the amount of text that's in that box. So let's say you had 3 verses on the screen and they fit fine, but then you added 4 and 5 verses to it. That text would then be going off the screen and your users wouldn't be able to see it. So if you had to scale down, it would scale your text down so it's small enough to actually fit in that box then.
Yep. All right, talk to me about how you've maneuvered shapes and gradients, how you've enhanced that.
Yeah, so shapes can now be filled with anything. You could fill it with, you could create a star, and you could create as many points to that star as you want. So it could be a 4-point, 5-point, 8-point star. But then you can also fill that with a live video feed, or you could fill that with a gradient, or you could fill that with text. So you don't have to create your text box first. You could create your shape box first if you want to.
Right.
So that's pretty powerful. The other thing is you can now draw a shape. So you got a pen tool. That's super awesome for designers. Personally, I'm a designer, so that's one of the things I like to do is create shapes in ProPresenter for the different themes that I'm building.
Right.
But gradients can then take place in any of your shapes as a fill.
All right. What are color triggers? Tell me about that.
So a color trigger, let's say that you have a countdown and you're going down to the last 10 seconds, and you want to really alert people that something's about to change or happen. You can go from having a 5-minute countdown that's white, and then the last 10 seconds it can change to red, and then the last 3 seconds it can change to yellow. So it's just kind of unique in that you can have it change color as it's going down through the timer.
Got it. All right. So this is a big one. Tell me about the new stage display. This really excites me. You've given it a normal editor window to access everything. I don't have to, go into a different setup or different, tinier, less advanced editor. You've given me a full normal editor to use on my stage display. Walk me through that.
Yeah. So in the past, you were limited to the options that we provided for the stage display. So, I mean, you wouldn't be able to add customizability to it.
Right.
But with the new version of the stage editor, it is literally the regular editor. So you're able to customize it to your heart's content. You can add shapes, you can add text formatting, you can do, gradients or whatever you want to do on the actual editor to make it so that the things that you want to stand out. And that makes it so much easier, being able to actually completely fully customize your stage editor.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, the stage editor was still pretty advanced in terms of presentation software, but now you just have complete customizability.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the multiple outputs in one view on stage display.
Yeah. So now with ProPresenter 7, you can output more than one stage display. So let's say you wanted to have your current slide text on one stage display, you could do that, but you could also output your next slide text to a different output. So you could have 2 TVs in the back of the room instead of trying to fit it all in one. You could also have a clock. You could really customize it in that way. So it has a whole lot of functionality for our users in that. Before you were stuck to just the one output, but now you can have really unlimited stage outputs.
Yeah, so some of this practically could look like, in the back of your room, if you had 2 monitors, one of those is lyrics and other things. The other one is a huge clock, countdown clock or whatnot. So, it really adds, lets you do more, a lot more. Really like the normal editor accessibility on that as well. All right, so let's talk about announcements layer. This one, so a lot of times we'll either have to use a separate computer for announcements to the lobby while we're running run through, something like that, so that the announcements can keep running while we are preparing for the service. So you guys have eliminated that and given us an announcement layer where I can use the same computer to run announcements while I'm doing run through or other things, right? Walk me through that.
Yeah, so now one computer can control your audience screens, and that could be your lower thirds for online. That could be your main center screen, and then you can have your stage screens coming from it for stage displays, as well as and a third essentially output that's dedicated, and that one is the announcements layer is what we're calling it. It can do more than that. I'll get into that, but with basically the announcements layer, what it lets you do is, as you progress through your presentation for your main show, you don't have to focus about your announcements going on in your lobby. You can start them on ProPresenter and leave them going, and they'll keep going while you continue to progress through your show. That's really a game changer, because now from one computer you can do all of that, and you don't have to focus on changing your outputs and a switcher to make sure that your announcements are live ahead of time using just your regular show, and then switching back to your regular show when the service starts, that sort of thing. So now it can all be done at one time. And using the incredible looks that we have, you can actually change all that in real time. So let's say at the beginning of your service, you wanted to transition from your lobby TV showing your announcement loop to showing your show loop. you could have it do that just via looks. So there's a whole lot of functionality there. But yeah, the announcement layer is definitely a game changer. I think one of the coolest things is just being able to go into the slideshow and set a time. So let's say I throw in, 5 graphics, one's the welcome graphic, one's a please silence your phone graphic, etc. I could just go in there and click the icon for the slideshow and just say I want for 5 seconds, and then it'll automatically loop them for 5 seconds each.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Tell me about the screen configuration panel.
Yeah. So the beauty of Pro7 is its multi-screen capabilities. In previous versions, you would have to pay extra for that. It was a module. Now that's all baked into ProPresenter 7, so it's no longer a module per se. It's just a feature of Pro7. It also doesn't cost any extra money for that. And so with the screen configuration panel, you are able to add the audience screens that you need to, the stage screens that you need to, and no longer do you need to restart ProPresenter for your screens to be connected and
get the output to work.
Yep.
Right, exactly. So I think we've had a lot of churches that struggle with that, with getting the output to work, or I got to close ProPresenter, start it back up. So walk me through practically how I would do that now.
Yeah.
Is that through that screen configuration panel, or
Yep.
how's that done?
Yeah, so in the screen configuration panel is where you set up your different screens. So you choose to say, I want a triple wide screen. You add it. You're able to select if you want it to be NDI or SDI if you have those outputs and inputs enabled. You could just do your HDMI. You could do the triple wide, whatever like resolution that is. I don't actually know what that is. Maybe that's a ridiculous high number. But you can do that all within that screen configuration. And so then you can choose and select your output. And the beauty of that is that the computer then remembers that, and ProPresenter remembers that next time you log in. You could also set a placeholder, which doesn't actually have a specific output configured to it. It's just a placeholder for the future. So if you're at home and you want to use a 1920 by 1080 stage screen, you can add that at home via a placeholder. And then when you get into the church or wherever you're going to be, you can choose the output that you already had there at the church. So that makes it really easy.
So you mentioned triple wide. Tell me about multi-screen. So talk to me about how multi-screen is now built in to the software.
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about with ProPresenter in the past is the need for hardware that would allow you to output one output and split it in 3 screens. So it was really it wasn't 3 dedicated screens. It was 1 dedicated output that is split 3 ways. And that's basically
kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a triple head to go. That's basically how you had to do it in the past in order to do a triple wide. Now that's no longer needed. You can still use it. So for churches who already have that hardware, you are still welcome to use that hardware. It works. But if you want to have the ability to split, to use your computer's outputs or to add on SDI outputs or something else, you can now use that instead of being concerned with having to use a triple head to go or something else where it's an expensive piece of equipment that really is limited because it's splitting one signal in thirds, if that makes sense. So now you can have independent outputs. You're no longer required to have just one output coming from ProPresenter.
Right. So I want to kind of list those out. So from one installation, you can create a 3-screen edge blend. You can do side screens with iMag, multiple stage display outlets, an announcement output feed. So those are kind of the things that are now built into the software. We can do it with one installation, right?
Yeah. On my personal computer at home right now, I have a stage TV, which would be like a speaking TV, someone speak off, a triple wide screen setup. I have a placeholder for lobby TV since I'm at home. A live feed signal, which would be my lower thirds, and then a center screen, just as an example. And that's all running off of a basic all-in-one computer, Windows computer, and it runs perfectly fine.
So tell me let's move to auto detection of outputs. We talked about this a little bit. Is there anything there that we want to mention? There's no more turning off the software it auto detects that. It's all built in. Anything else there you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, that's the huge thing is like, so if you were to have a projector turn off and turn back on, you don't need to restart ProPresenter for it to see it. So in the past, like
Mm-hmm.
if you were to turn off your computer and turn off all the other video equipment, you'd want to make sure you turned it on the right order so that your computer saw it and then ProPresenter saw it. But now it's set up in such a way that even if something disconnects while you're using it, once it reconnects, you no longer have to worry about shutting off ProPresenter to reconnect it.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Countdown timers. You guys have enhanced the countdown timer feature. How?
Yeah. The countdowns can now be easily built in ProPresenter. So you don't have to go to some YouTube page and illegally download a countdown. You can just create a timer. You can set it for a 5-minute duration. You can set it to count down to a specific time, 12 p.m., whatever you want to do. And then on your actual slide, you can have that set as a timer action that when you click that slide, it turns on the timer. And so then you can format that timer however you want. So it could be, you can have a theme, or you could create a slide that has a time, or it could say 3, 2, 1. It doesn't have to say what the time is. But if you format it with big text, small text, in the corner of your screen, in the middle of the screen, you can do it however you want it to create that exact timer look that you want. And it's as simple then as just clicking the slide and it starts.
So we create a lot of media content that includes countdowns and motion backgrounds, all that kind of stuff, as well as church announcement videos. So this is a feature that I see being more it's more enhanced or more advanced, how you can put your countdown clock on the bottom of your video announcements or on the bottom of some type of piece of footage. If you have that going, it can come on top of there. You've given us more options and more capabilities to make that look better
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
Okay, so you talked about this a little bit, but are people hesitant? Are you seeing a lot of people like, I'm going to let you guys work out the kinks first before I jump in? Or are a lot of people jumping in? Kind of give me a read and a temperature again.
So on the ProPresenter users group on Facebook, that we have over 16,000 people in there now, and a majority of the people there that have jumped in are not having any problems with ProPresenter. But in the real world, what we see is the most vocal people are the ones who don't like things,
Mm-hmm.
And so even though we see from our statistics on our end, even of our software usage and how many people have purchased it and that sort of thing, we're not having a larger customer support problem than we were with ProPresenter 6 or 5 or anything like that. We're updating it and we're doing all that. So we saw the biggest launch we've ever had with ProPresenter 7
Mm-hmm.
because more churches love the features and the functionality of it than ever,
Mm-hmm.
and so they jumped into it. And then on top of that, even though yes, there are bugs because it's a new software, and any new software has bugs, regardless of what company it is. We're working so hard and so fast to get through those bugs that most of our users are super excited about it and aren't having any problems running their show live.
Yeah.
But then, there are the few that you'll see if you join one of those groups that are constantly saying something that's
And there always will be, no matter what you do.
They have a unique situation, and so our goal is to update and find the solution to their problem. And so that's what we're working on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, you're pretty new to the company. So what have you been tasked to do? So for instance, how can people reach out to you specifically, or, how have you been tasked to connect with users and connect with churches?
Yeah. So you will find me at most of our trade shows or conferences. I'm trying to get us into doing more of them, simply because I want us to be able to be a part of the community. We're not necessarily just out to get more sales because we already have a huge market share, but we are out to really engage with the customers we have and to meet the future customers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to do the best I can to engage with those customers we have and talk to them and get to know them, see how they're using ProPresenter and our other software, and show it off to other churches as well. And so one of the best places for that is our Facebook group, the ProPresenter users group. Again, it has over 16,000 people. We've grown it from 8,000 people in 4 months, I think now. So it's grown significantly. And all of those people there are either ProPresenter users or people who are considering using ProPresenter, and so they're checking out what we're doing there. But those are the best places to connect with me, because you'll find me on that group a lot. You'll find me on our social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatnot. To lead those. And then if you're at a conference, come find me, because I'd love to get to know what you're doing, and maybe even show it off to other churches as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Cody, thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it. And you guys are doing great. So keep at it. And I want to encourage people to reach out to you, join the Facebook group there, and just reach out. A lot of people, that have, if you're having problems with software or whatever, guys like you, Cody, are ready and willing to help and to find the solution to problems. So I want to encourage people to do that as well. So man, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was good talking to you. Good. I hope that your users and everyone's going to love your podcast for this, because I know a lot of your users already use ProPresenter, so I'm hoping that they get to learn something from it and get to gain something from it.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Hey guys, I wanted to take 30 seconds to tell you about our brand new mini movie called For Such a Time as This. So there have been many folks who have risen to the challenge during this difficult time in our country, and to each of them we say thank you. We've produced this mini movie for you to use as a service opener, a sermon bumper, or as a transitional element in your in-person or online worship experience. It's called For Such a Time as This, and you can pick it up today at 1230.media/worship media. That's 1230.media/worship media.
The show notes for this episode are available now at MAKINGSUNDAYHAPPEN.com.
Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out this week. I hope and pray that our episode last week with Brad and our episode this week with Cody has given you a better understanding of ProPresenter 7. So if you're on the fence, you can learn so much more about the software and all the new features that it provides. And hopefully, if you've moved to Pro 7 already, hopefully this will give you an idea. These episodes will give you an idea of how you can take the software further. Okay, so all right, next week is a big episode for us. Next week's episode of our show is our 250th episode of the podcast. I can't believe it. We've been at this weekly for almost 5 years now. So it's been so much fun. We've been through hundreds of guests, tons of content, and we're just getting started. So next week, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane of some of our recent guests, and I'll also welcome 3 powerhouse guests to the show. The first one is author of The Road Back to You, an Enneagram Journey of Self-Discovery, Ian Morgan Cron will be joining me. So if you're an Enneagram fan, next week is the episode for you. I'll also welcome worship leader, songwriter, Christian music artist, Matt Maher will be in the house. And if you're a baseball fan at all, you might remember this guy, former Atlanta Braves first baseman, Sid Bream. Now, if you're a Braves fan and you've been around a while, you can remember the early 90s, the Sid Bream slide. If you're a Braves fan at all, it goes down in Braves history. So I am so excited to welcome Sid. He's a believer. He speaks at churches all around the country, and he would be a fantastic person to have come and speak at your worship experience. So we're going to have a lot of fun next week. It's going to be a blast. The interviews are awesome. These guys are incredible. Both Ian Cron and Matt Maher I spoke to at SALT last year. So I'll be sharing those interviews with you. And then Sid Bream I interviewed just a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to put it in next week's episode of the podcast. So packed episode next week. You don't want to miss it. All right, our 250th episode of Making Sunday Happen. So we love you guys. Thank you so much for being on this journey with us. It is our prayer to come alongside you and help you with your worship experience through media content and training. We don't have all the answers. We are on the journey right beside you. So just think of us as Yoda that has, maybe we've curated some answers or have some ideas for you. So we just want to be alongside you on the journey. So thank you so much for serving your church and serving the kingdom the way that you do. Way to go, and keep after it. We'll go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit MakingSundayHappen.com.